Thanks for tuning in to this next episode of In the Dirt with ASOTU. I'm joined by someone who's super special in automotive for a lot of reasons, but his recent claim to fame is winning a brand new Ford Mach-E after winning a video competition put on by Ford's Blue Cruise. I'd like to introduce you to Matthew Smith. So Matthew, thank you for joining us.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and first off, huge shout out to you and to Sean B. Bradley. I just heard about you guys this morning. Heard about you on Sean's podcast this morning, and I was like, man, I got to talk to Matthew.
Hey, no problem. I'm pleasure to be here. This is, still very fun and, raw moment for me. So
yeah, and I know I asked you earlier, but do you feel like a celebrity yet?
I guess after this, yeah, I actually do,
About time then, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, well, like at a super high level, so let's walk through what happened. So you submitted a video for a video competition put on by Ford's Blue Cruise, and it was kind of like a demo video, kind of showing off some features of their self-driving that they have within a few of their vehicles, specifically the Mach-E. But tell me what that was like to at least create that content originally.
It was fun, because I read they have these message board where they kind of put stuff, and I feel like I must be the only one that reads it, because I saw and I read and I was like, oh, video submission, 2.5 minutes. I'm like, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, so it's just a kind of your own walk around. They usually have very strict rules. So when I read it and it was kind of open, I'm like, oh, we could do anything. And then I'm like, cool. So instantly, my first mindset was just oh, cool, I'm gonna do something with Blue's Clues. It rhymes. I'm like, who's gonna think to do something with Blue's Clues? So then I'm like, all right, so I kind of wrote something out. Then I'm like, wait a minute, let me go back. I went straight down to the copyright. I'm like, all right, what? I'm like, and I'm reading it. I'm like, all right, you can't have anything that can be copyrighted. I'm like, so I'm like, that's copyrighted. So I emailed her. I was like, hey, for copyright, what do you mean? And then I was like, they kind of said oh, you can't have any brand logos, nothing, everything. I was like, everything has to be dealership oriented. It has to say Matthews-Currie Ford for everything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right, well, let me figure something out. So I started brainstorming, and then, I wasn't really happy. So then I used ChatGPT to give myself more ideas. So then all right, so I had an idea, and then I started creating scripts through ChatGPT. And then I had 40 pages of stuff, and then I just kept pulling out stuff and copying, pasting, and moving it around, and then try to make a nice movie flow. And I'm like, all right, so I have my idea, my script, and then I spent a day filming and went completely disaster, from the beginning, because I didn't really think this through. And then I'm like, my wife's filming it, so she's holding the camera and holding the script at the same time. I had a tripod in the back of the car filming too. So
yeah, it was a family affair, huh?
It was, and we were just going up and down the highway for 5 hours, and I thought I had enough filming, and then the editing was 10 days of just me trying to put what I wrote on paper into this video. And I mean, I'm video software. I always used to download stuff on my computer, but I have everything on my phone. I'm like, there's got to be an app on the phone to do this. So I know there's iMovie, and I'm like, I don't want to use iMovie. It's whack. So I went on TikTok, and I'm like, all right, what do people use? So I just looked up, videos, and I'm following. And I'm like, I found one. And I'm like, oh, cool. So then I'm like, all right, someone should probably have a tutorial on how to use this.
Sure. So what'd you find? Was it CapCut?
InShot.
InShot. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I saw that one, but I didn't like it. I'm like, oh man, that's way too intense. I was like, that's way too much. So I'm like, all right, InShot. And I'm like, all right. So then InShot had a bunch of tutorials that was really easy, and it was free. They even because most of the ones, they had a watermark. So you had to pay for their app to take the watermark off that you don't with them. I see. Yeah. So I'm like, cool. So I learned there, and then YouTube had more tutorials. Then I'm following some teenagers that used the video that had their own little spin and little tricks on how to use. So I'm like, all right. So I used that, and that took me a day to learn it. And then it pretty much after 7 days of just me editing it on my phone every night, just for 5 hours, just going through it and just piecing that stuff together. I just kept doing it on my, and then the funny thing is I wanted music, because I was like, you have to put music. But then I'm like,
That's true.
I don't want to create music. That's going to take a lot of effort. So then I'm like, all right, well, let me scour the internet for free,
for royalty
music.
free. Exactly.
So I'm like, but then you have to give them a shout out. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I feel like that's too much. So I'm like, all right, well, what can I do? And I'm like, I'll just beatbox it. So like, you'll hear a little bit of like music in the video, and it's just my voice.
The soundtrack was you.
It's just my voice in the background. Besides like the static, besides the static from the highway, it's just me making noises in the background from my phone.
Well, you know, they always say when you're writing a movie, you almost rewrite it 3 times. One, when the initial writing's happening, the second when you're filming it, and then the third in the edit. And maybe for you, there was a 4th and 5th time in the edit, it sounds like.
Yeah. So then the video is like done, and I'm kind of happy with it, but I'm like, you know, I try to put little things in there. I'm like, I wonder if people notice this little, you know, stupid thing that I thought of, you know, like putting this random color around me, but I'll have it change every time I say Blue Cruise. I'm like, maybe someone will notice that, you know? Yeah. And then it was fun filming it because I was filming it while the car was driving.
Oh, so that's true.
The car,
like self-driving.
The car's self-driving on the highway, and I'm trying to keep my eyes on the road, and I'm spewing all this information and messing up. And I figure, like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't think anyone's going to do this. They're going to not only film the video in the car, but like the technology is that when you're on the highway, you could do other stuff. So I made sure that I was like safe, seatbelt on, I'm paying attention to the road. I'm not like falling asleep, you know, because I had a bunch of ideas to like act like I'm sleeping or eat like a whole meal. And then I'm like, wait a minute, let me keep this simple and safe, you know, so I just,
How funny. And just like you said, the vehicle drives itself, and you could literally do almost anything while you were driving, and filming and creating. So you've literally proved that Blue Cruise is so safe and so easy to use that you can film and produce a video while you're driving.
Yeah, because that's what they wanted. They wanted the biggest thing was that, you know, you could talk about what it is, who's it for, where can you use it, why you should use it, but they wanted to inspire. So they're like, all right, well, if I'm going to inspire people, and there's going to be hundreds of videos that are going to say the same thing 100 different times, probably the same way, I'm like, all right, I have to be different somehow. Let me just talk like me and be like, this is why I think this is fun. You know, if you have, you know, because I don't know if you've ever driven a long time on a highway and you're the driver and you have friends behind you, you're not a part of the conversation. You know, you kind of pay attention, but you know, you're left out. So
you're too busy driving.
So it's a fun way to like enjoy the car ride with, you know, people in the car.
Yeah, that's cool. So I guess let's talk about what you won real fast. So Blue Cruise paid for the Mach-E, which I think was like 55 grand. So it wasn't like it was a lease, like a 3-year one or a 2-year one or a 1-year lease. They literally bought the vehicle for you. Yeah, paid all the taxes, titling, all that stuff. How cool.
Ford Blue Cruise, you know, department for Ford Motor Company, you know, they put on this, and they straight up bought the vehicle from our lot too, which is great. So,
that's right. From you guys.
So we actually had one. So, and it was funny because like my favorite color is red. So like that day, my wife's like, hey, you should wear your new shoes that you just bought, like your Jordans. I'm like, I'm not wearing those. She's like, no, I think this is a great day. Like you should. You're like, you know what? I should wear them. So like she like Jedi mind tricked me to wear these Jordans, this like bright red like jacket she got me because it was actually kind of chilly. So I'm like, all right. So I actually like,
oh my word.
I felt, you know, and I played football in college. So like because I was a receiver. So our biggest thing was like, you know, we were that position where we look good more than any other position, you know, all the wristbands, the visor, you know, eye black. So, you know, you look good, you feel good, you know, like Dion, you know, that's how I played.
That's what it is. Exactly.
So she said, she's like, no, this is going to be a great day.
This could be a great day.
You're going to feel good. I'm like, you're right. You know what? You're right.
Well, let's tell the audience a little bit more about that. So your wife knew about this, that you were going to win that day. And so did basically the entire dealership. You were the only one that didn't know about that.
Yeah, I had no idea.
How long did they hide this from you, and what did that look like?
The entire time, like everyone hid it. I came in a little early because I had work to do. Our marketing lady, who the day before, she's like, hey, we're going to film this Facebook video. Like, here's the bullet points of what Brad, our GM, wanted you to talk about. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's weird, you know? I'm like, usually he films this, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I guess he might be busy. I guess he just wants me to do it. Fine,
Sure.
It'll be fun, you know.
You're used to it at this point.
Yeah. So like that morning I came in, had some work to do, and she was already here, and I'm like, oh wow. She's like, are you ready? I'm like, I just got here. I was like, give me like 30 minutes to finish this, and I'll be ready. I was like, but at 10 o'clock, I was like, I have something to do at 10 o'clock. It'll take me 5 to 10 minutes. I have to do it. So if we're filming, I'll have to stop, do that, and we'll be okay. She'll be like, oh, okay. She's like, what is it? I'm like, this, don't worry about it, you know? So I finished my work, and my desk is right near like the front of the showroom. So I could see, I have a nice view of the area. So I see these guys like waiting around with cameras, setting up everything. And I felt bad because I'm like, man, they've been here for like an hour. And I'm just like waiting
for you, right?
And I'm like, so I'm like, she keeps coming over, like checking me. She's like, you ready? I'm like, no, I'm almost done. I was like, can they film like anything else while this is going on? Yeah. She's like, well, you're kind of the focal point. I'm like, okay, all right, fine. That's fine.
How funny.
So I did all my things, and then like 10 o'clock comes, and my computer that's not working. So I have to go on my phone. So like I had to buy, so I'm a big like wrestling fan. So I had to buy tickets to this event that's happening in January.
That's what it was.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm on my phone, like zoned in, trying to buy these tickets.
And to you, it's not that big of a deal because you're trying to film you think you're just filming a Facebook video.
Yeah. And then like what I didn't realize is as I'm like paying attention to my phone, our dealer principal, all these Ford people walk in from the side door.
Yeah.
And they're trying to sneak in, but so I don't see, but I'm like focused on my phone, and then they're coming in, and then more people are slowly trying to come into the showroom, and they're just like, how does he not just turn around and notice? So I'm oblivious because I just finished my work. I'm trying to buy these tickets, and it's not working, and I'm like getting frustrated, and then these people are waiting for me, so I'm just like, slow down. So I get the tickets, and then I'm like, all right, I go outside, and then I'm like, all right, I'm ready, you know? And they're like, oh, we mic'd you up, you know? I'm like, all right. She's like, all right, so just get in the car, you know? It's parked over there. She's like, we just need you to drive up here at this cone, get out, and then you could start your presentation. I'm like, all right, so we're probably going to film this like a few times. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pause between each statement. And if I mess up, I'll just say it again, and then you could just edit
which is a very common thing to do. Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to do this a lot. So I was like, we'll just do this a few times, you know? Yeah. So she's all right. So I noticed as I'm walking over, she's like, there's like some mechanics out there. And I was like, it's like, what the mechanics for? It's like, oh, we want a nice shot of the background of them like talking to customers to see like how great we are.
Yeah, because there's a ton of people out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, at that time there was 10 people.
Oh, it was only 10. Okay.
10 mechanics. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I get in the vehicle, and then there's cameras, like a GoPro and like another camera pointed at me, and I'm like, this is so
like nice cameras different. Too. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm talking to myself, going over this like script, and I'm just like, all right, I could do this. And I'm like looking around, I'm like, this is actually a pretty nice vehicle. Not even thinking that this is my vehicle.
Yeah. You're not even realizing that you're in the vehicle that you want.
Yeah. So then I drive up, I get out, and then I just start talking, spewing all this like, hey, I'm Matthew Smith from Matthews-Currie Ford. You know, we are going to be your EV dealer in this area of Sarasota County. I was like, why should you buy from us? I was like, this is why. We also have this great certified EV staff behind me. So then I turn around, and there's like, I thought it was 10 mechanics, and there's 200 people, and they're all just staring at me.
Yeah.
No one says a word. And I guess they were told, like, all right, when he comes out, no one could say anything until we give you the sign, and then you can cheer.
Oh, I see.
So when I turned around, I was like, hey, and everyone was quiet. I was like,
oh, and you were blown away too because there were that many people behind you now.
Yeah. And then I'm like, no, like, get up. And then everyone was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I start talking again, not even thinking like, all right, just keep it going, you know? And then these 3 people walk over, and then one's my wife, which I was very like, why is she here? She's supposed to be at work.
Sure.
And then the 2 people are like, oh yeah, we're so-and-so from Blue Cruise and Ford Motor Company, you know, thank you for your video. You know, and that car you just rolled in, that's your brand new car. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
You know, like I would have had
Shock.
a way better response. So I saw our like dealer principal and then like the Ford rep, and
Yeah.
they're very like proper individuals. So like my
Sure.
first reaction was to just start cussing and running. You know, I would have
Yeah.
instantly I would have been f bombing this and be like holy s that. You know, but then
Yeah.
like I saw them, so I was like holding it together. You know,
Yeah.
not to just
And
like
this is
start
your
like,
dealer principal from like an hour away, and then your regional rep from Ford or from Blue Cruise
right.
that like you never see.
No, and then these Ford people, and then my
Yeah,
wife, and I'm just in
that's
the,
right.
the whole dealership, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, hold it together, don't freak out, don't
Sure.
cuss. I just kept saying, don't cuss, don't say
Don't
anything,
cuss. Yeah.
right? So then I'm just like
What do you
holding
do
it
at that
together, but
point?
I'm in just
Yeah.
shock. She's like, oh, check it out. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
So,
but like how cool that you get to go through an experience like that. And I know I said this to you already, but I think it's so cool that Ford and Blue Cruise technically believes in creating content so much that they're willing to give someone a Mach-E just like that.
yeah,
I think this says a lot to
Just-
content creation. Like you and I have believed that for a long time. I mean, we were talking before we started rolling just about like your relationship to content creation, editing, things like that, and you've been doing it for a long time. I know that you believe the same thing that I do, is that content is really what pushes brands forward, and
oh
it's
yeah.
cool to see that like Ford like as like buy-in now.
You look at everything just in the media, and then just look at how the landscape has changed. I mean, let's MTV. All they used to do was just like show us music videos. They don't even show music videos anymore. Like
Yeah,
rarely.
that's right.
Now they're just showing ridiculousness, which is just all content. It's just
Yeah,
all
that's right.
funny videos, right?
Yeah.
And just technology has changed, and everything, the landscape changes. So you have to just kind of follow it.
Yeah, no, for sure it does. So how cool that you won the competition, that they kept it a surprise, and that your wife even told you to wear the correct Jordans that morning.
It was a fun. It's still fun to like talk about and show people the videos, because people don't believe it. I went home for Thanksgiving, and everyone was just like so happy that they could be a part of it. Because even though they weren't there, they were just,
Sure.
everyone was just happier because no one. I guess I've been watching Price is Right for way too long, where
Yeah.
I just think this is just like, oh, it just happens to everybody, you know?
Sure.
No, it doesn't happen to anybody. People don't even know people that win cars, you know?
Yeah. And here you are that you won a car. Like that is so cool to see that. So what would you say to like the rest of automotive, like right now, like as far as how important content creation is, how far important media like this is to local dealerships? Like it's clear that you guys invest a lot into either social media, content creation, or even traditional content that goes out there. So what would you say to the rest of automotive as far as what this means, what this should mean to them?
Yeah, I posted this on a bunch of group sites, and I just said, like, if you think that making these videos, walk arounds, little TikTok reels there's no benefit to it. I was like, yeah, I want a car, but
Yeah.
I was like, the benefit is that you are showing the world, who you are, your brand, which is yourself, and you're showing everybody something different that they're not used to. And word of mouth travels fast. I was like, your phone is the best tool that you can use to benefit you in your career, regardless of what it is, But automotive is just like, you could be the next big thing. You could be the next, Dwayne Johnson at a small dealership in, Colma, California. That could be you. And it's just, everyone started somewhere. Mr. Beast started somewhere. The Logan and Jake Paul, they started somewhere. Look
That's
where they
right.
are now. All it takes is one person to see something and be like, huh, wow, like that was pretty cool, and then it could be somebody's grandmother that'd be like, hey, look at this, and her son could be Post Malone. It's like, you never know.
Seriously. Yeah.
So it's like, you think these videos are dumb, but it's like, that's where our market is going. This is a new type of ad, and it's free. Social media is the new ad. So it's just like, you look at what social media is now, and it's like, you could be a part of that just doing free stuff. Look at the kid that's making millions of dollars reviewing toys because he liked doing it, and his parents just happened to film it.
Exactly. Ryan's world for the win, right?
Right. It's like, just do something different, right? Be the automotive dealership that just makes raps, about your car,
Sure. Yeah.
Be that.
Well, I'm glad you even brought up Mr. Beast, because people look at him and say, oh man, 200 million subs on YouTube, that happens overnight. Well, it doesn't. Jimmy created, but Jimmy created for years and years on his own, making videos basically every single day, trying to get better at it. And it took years for that to pay off, if not a decade. Like, it took a long time for that to happen. People think it happens overnight. It doesn't. It takes hard work.
No. Now it's like easy. It's like he already has the following. Yeah. He can just do whatever he wants. And it's just like millions of views. And it's like, it is what it is. He got there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about this. It's really cool to meet you, to get to know you. Once again, huge shout out to Sean V. Bradley and also Tiana Mick for connecting us through their podcast this morning. It's kind of cool to do that, and also kind of amazing to feature you, Matthew. So thank you so much for joining us.
No, I appreciate it for the time. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for watching this episode of In the Dirt with ASOTU. If you're new to our channel, make sure and mash that like and subscribe button. Also, check out some of these links for our other great podcasts and content.